My name is Jane Shaw, and you may have heard from me with some of the correspondence that I've sent out. I'm the Admissions and Outreach Manager for the Department of Bioengineering at Imperial College, and I'm really delighted that we've got some of our current students happily here, patiently waiting to answer your questions. You will find, hopefully on the right hand side of your screens, a Q&A function whereby you can submit questions, and one of our students is moderating those questions and is aiming to publish them all. You also have the option, once those questions are published, to like those questions, so as our panel knows which ones are most popular and which ones require an answer. Again, apologies for starting that a little bit later. As I said, we're going to start with the panel introducing themselves. As you've probably worked out, this is our first time running a Q&A session on Microsoft Teams Live. So do bear with us as we work out how it goes together, and do put in your questions. I am going to be very much in the background. It's the students that are going to be running this. We will run until 7 p.m. or until we run out of questions, and at the end of that I will send out an announcement with a feedback form that we would be really grateful if you filled in. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Abhishek, our student rep, who is going to chair the discussion and will be able to introduce the panel. So there does tend to be a short part between moving between screens. So over to Abhishek.
Okay, thanks so much, Jane. Hi, everyone. My name is Abhishek Roy. I've just actually finished my final year as a biomedical engineer, but I'm currently still the departmental representative for undergraduates. I moved to London from India to study, and I'm planning to work there now that I've graduated. Yeah, okay, over to the rest of the panel.
Hi guys, my name's Ryan. I study a master's in human and biological robotics. This is my first and last year at Imperial, so I came from King's College, and I've lived in London all my life, so if you've got any questions about coming to new uni or living in London, I'm your guy.
Hi, my name is Dimitra, and I'm a third-year biomedical engineering student. I'm the current president of the Bioengineering Society, and I am also a member of the ice hockey team. So if you have any questions about some sports stuff or the society, you can feel free to ask me or anyone else. We have the next president in this call as well. So, yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ming, and I'm from Singapore, and I'm from the first batch of the molecular bioengineering course, and I'm currently going to my fourth year, my final year. So I'll be happy to take any questions that you have on the course, and yeah, it's very nice to see you all here.
Hi everyone, my name is Rhea, and I finished my first year in the molecular bioengineering course. I'm originally from Albania, and I came to the UK 3 years ago to continue my IB studies and then university. This year I served as an academic representative, and next year you might see me around Whitehall as a hall senior. I love sports, I love playing the piano, reading nonfiction books, and I'm also very keen on representing my peers' concerns to the department and making sure everyone has a say in the decisions that affect students' academics and well-being.
Hi everyone, my name is Bisha, and I've just finished my first year of biomedical engineering. I'm of Iraqi origin, but I'm born and raised in London, actually about 10 minutes away from Imperial. I'm the well-being leader of first year biomedical engineering, and if I were to say some interesting things about myself, I love running track, and I'm a sneakerhead, and I love shoes, if any of you are into that. As well as Ryan, feel free to ask me anything about London and also about the life of being a fresher. So yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Alvaro. I'm from Madrid, Spain. I just finished my second year and I'll be going into my third year next year studying biomedical engineering at the department. Next year I'll take on the role of being your department academic representative. So any questions or queries you could have on any academic related issues, I'll be happy to answer them. And yeah, we're all very happy to have you here.
Hi everyone, I'm Elias, and I just finished my second year as Biomedical Engineering. Well, I'm French Lebanese, and I have been this year's Social Events Coordinator in the Bioengineering Society here at Imperial, and I'll be the president of the society next year, and feel free to ask any question.
Hi everyone, I'm Neddy, I'm Nigerian, and I'm a master's student in biomedical engineering, specifically the biomechanics stream. I'm also a volunteer tutor with the Pimlico organization, so I teach science to grade students. So if you have any questions about volunteer activities, about being an international student and coping with life in London, just let me know and I'm happy to answer them. All right.
Back to you, Roy.
I was muted. Thank you. So thanks everyone for the introductions. As you can see, the panel that we have here is really diverse. We have people from different parts of the globe who have different experiences, different backgrounds, different interests. And so we hope that you can find someone that you connect with and you can ask some interesting questions, which will help you make your decision about Imperial. So as Jane mentioned earlier, on the bottom right side of your screen, you should see a Q&A button where you can then click on that and then you can submit questions. Once you submit questions, we'll have them on a panel with us, and then you can also like or upvote other questions sent in by others, and then we'll get to those questions first and prioritize them like that. Before any questions come in, we also have a preset some questions that we have, which we'll start with. So let's start with a few from here. So one of the most common questions that we receive is, what is a typical week like in the life of a bioengineer in the first year undergraduate, and then we can move on to the masters. So I guess Bishar or Rhea, you guys want to take this?
Yeah, sure. Yep, there we go. So usually your first year, you're going to find yourself very caught up in making friends, joining clubs and societies, and you will actually eventually find your weekly routine, what you like to do. So for me personally, it would be going to university, and I do enjoy the gym. I do like to go for a run in the evening when the weather's nice, and if I'm feeling ambitious, wake up early in the morning and do that. But yeah, just see whatever works for you. And the best part about it is, which I didn't expect, was you sometimes think, oh, how do I have enough time to do certain things? But everything just sort of pans out. You always have a time to do something. You always have time for yourself as well, time to rest. So yeah, I say, a fixed schedule isn't something that normally happens, but I go with the flow personally. But yeah, Rhea, what do you think? What do you normally do in a week?
Yeah,
actually, never asked you this question.
So I was gonna say, well, it depends on everyone. It depends on what you like to do. Sorry, can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So I was gonna say it sort of depends on every person what you like to do, and also it depends on the time of the year. So your first week at uni is gonna look completely different from like some week when you have exams and you have like a lot of workload to cope with. So personally, as an international student, one of the things that I really liked to do was to explore London and go around, because like it was a city that I always wished I lived there. So I found the opportunity to explore like some of the most interesting parts of London, and especially South Kensington has a lot of nice museums and some cute restaurants which you could go to. And also, other than that, like you have lots of clubs to explore. Like it's more than 350 or something. I can't remember the exact number. So there's plenty of things to do apart from just studying and your timetable and the lectures you have to attend.
Did you want master students now?
Yeah, Ryan, please tell us.
Okay.
I guess, yeah.
So typical day. Okay, so I live quite far away. I feel like Imperial's got a lot of international students, so you guys are probably going to be living in halls and be like pretty close. So that's cool. But my typical day, I obviously had to commute a lot. But once I'm in uni, it's just kind of you have lectures sometimes in the morning. You just get through it. Like a master's is not very different from undergrad. I went in with the mentality that it was going to be a whole lot different. I was going to be really busy, but you still have time to do, so don't let it scare you and think, oh, a master's is a lot more commitment. It's just a higher level of education. You've got to be ready to, take on harder questions, harder, be a bit more, what's the word? It depends on you, right? You can't rely on other people. But other than that, there's still time to do what you want to do. So don't let, if you are a master's student, don't let that scare you. Try and do as much as you can, do what you want to do, enjoy the most of London. You can make the day how you want to make it. There's no fixed day. Like I think Bashir said that. There's no fixed day. You do what you want to do. Make sure you study. Make sure you pass your degree, and it'll be cool. Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. Just to add some numbers to those answers, on average, I think from my memory, year one students have around, during a normal week, 25 contact hours. That'll be split between lectures, lab sessions, and tutorials.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, so those are, of course, they're very different from each other, and then of course you'll have to do some work on your own. So every week, most modules in year one and year two, you'll receive some kind of problem sheets, which are just problems that you want to do at home. And then you come to a tutorial session. At the tutorial session, those are smaller groups where you'll sit with a graduate teaching assistant who will help you walk through those problems and clear your doubts from the previous week's lecture. And then you'll have some kind of a lab. So that's the majority of teaching is done in that way in the first year. Of course, now the same thing will be done online. So you will still have your lectures, you will still have your tutorials, you will still have your problem sheets. So you won't be missing out on pretty much anything. And yeah, so just actually, I'm going to give this back to Ryan in a second, because there was a question about commuting in London. And I guess you'd be a good person to answer since you're staying far away. And then after that, if anybody else has something to say about commuting to campus.
Okay, briefly, I'll talk about commuting. I think Neddy wanted to say something about just being a master's student as well about the previous question. But so commuting, yeah. What exactly was the question? Because let me just, where was it?
Yeah, it was
anyone who commuted, how was it different? How was it different?
Yeah.
So I've actually commuted, when I went to King's as well, I also commuted, and it's different, right? So it will be slightly different to, you don't get to kind of experience living alone and living that halls life, but you can make it like that if you want to. You can still go out, if you make friends as well, if they're willing to let you just, stay, hang around them, stay at their place, then, it's not the end of the world. You can still kind of have a nightlife and do things. I still did, I still was able to go out with my friends who lived around like central London. I live in East London. So, London's got a very good transport network. Obviously, we've got the tube. So, and don't worry, it's not, once you get used to it, it's not confusing at all. So, you got the night tube, which hopefully should be running even with COVID and everything. It should be better by the time you guys come. So, yeah, it's different, but you can make the most of it, and it's not much of a restriction, especially in London. So don't be too worried about it. If you were worried about it, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. With being a master's student, I think Ryan's experience is different because he's kind of lived in London for a while. I'm an international student, so everything was like super new to me. Just the teaching, being in London in the first place. So I think what I would say is that it's okay for your first few weeks to be a little confusing. It's going to get better. Don't worry if you find yourself regarding transportation, like missing train stops or everything. I think the app that helped me the most was City Mapper. I got to understand like bus stops and like train stops and everything. So I think what I'll mostly say is it's okay for the first few weeks to be a little off, especially if you're an international student. It's going to get better and easier. And London is super friendly. Like there are always people like ready to give you directions. Multiple times I was lost and I asked and then I got help. So yeah, that's what I'll say on that.
Thanks, Neddy. Actually, just sticking with you while we have you, some of the questions are more about being an international student in London. One of them is a little bit of a difficult one. It's asking what are some of the more difficult things that you've found that you've taken maybe some time to adjust to when it comes to moving to London?
Okay. I think the first thing will be the weather. but this is specifically for me coming from Nigeria in Africa. I'm used to a lot more heat. So I arrived in September, so it was already cold. Just getting jackets and figuring out accommodation that had a heater. These weren't things that I found out before coming, so it was a little hard for me to adapt to that. So I think it's great for you to do your research beforehand, especially with the accommodation that you're going to be getting. Keep in mind that the weather is really, really different, and it was really hard for me to adjust to. So the weather was the hardest thing, and probably finding ethnic food, because it took a while for me to get used to the food in London. But London is great in that regard. There are lots of places, like just Google and you find them, like honestly. So yeah, those two specifically.
That's a great answer. Thanks, Neddy. Ming, actually, you're from Singapore as well. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so definitely, okay, yeah, so definitely I agree with you. Definitely the food was one of the greatest shocks. Yeah, because I eat so much Chinese food, and it's a bit hard. It's getting better now. Like our supermarkets now stock some Asian food, but I still have to get some of the Asian stuff from either online or I go to Chinatown, and Chinatown is great because it's full of stuff and it's quite cheap. So if you're an Asian student and you want to have your Chinese fix, that's where you get it. And of course, I think another issue that I faced as an international student, I guess when you come to London, you'll probably be coming alone, right? You won't be coming with your family. I think in general, like having to adjust to the experience of living alone and living apart from your family is definitely something that you need to get used to a little bit. So call your parents home more often and get your laundry done. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Ming. Does anybody else have anything else to add to that about living in London and coming as an international student to a new place? All right. If not, so I guess I'm going to move on to a couple of some preparatory questions the student have, which are like, what should I do before I come to Imperial? I have the summer off and I don't know if I should be preparing something. And just in that same light, students are asking whether, everybody has different backgrounds. How does Imperial deal with that? I'll answer the second part of that before giving it off to my colleagues. So the first and second years at Imperial are structured in a way that they understand that students who are attending have come from a very diverse backgrounds and different education systems. So the first 2 years are kind of building a foundation. And so you start at a pretty simple level and then build up from there. They don't assume that you know how to differentiate or integrate. So they'll teach you calculus from the start and similarly other topics. So first and second year is kind of playing catch up and then you hit a high gear. So back to the first question, I guess Ria had something to say about preparatory kind of work that you can do before you join.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, take this summer off. You've worked very hard during your IB or A levels or whatever you've done to achieve those grades, and if you've met your condition, like just take some time for yourself to get some rest before you start university. But if you really want something to prepare for, I would say look at the curriculum, because like usually they publish on the website the modules that you're going to do. So for example, for maths, I wouldn't be too worried because math starts from the very basics. Plus they give you a sort of software to prepare for some maths concept, and you will sit a sort of exam in the beginning to see where everyone is, like, and you will get a lot of help with maths. Something that I personally struggled with was electrical engineering and like some subjects which required some physics background, because during my IB I didn't choose physics as my higher level. So for example, I wish I had prepared a little bit on the more physics and the computational kind of subjects, but no matter how much you prepare, like a lot of stuff are going to be new, so there's not that much you can do, honestly.
Okay, thanks, Ria. Does anybody have anything else to add to that?
There was a question about having an A-level biology background.
Yeah, go ahead if you want to answer that.
Yeah. So that was a concern a lot of people had this year, actually, which I'm well-being leader, and they come to me, they get a bit anxious. But you know what? I really realized even before I came to Imperial, I'd think like, oh, should I prepare for something? You know, should I revise my maths for this maths diagnostic test that we have in the beginning? But trust me, it really is like a lot more chill than you think. You know, you're gonna come in, you're gonna just learn new things. And what's really nice, and which what I didn't expect, is like, whatever level you're on, it's just they do it in such a great way that everyone seems to come to the same level of knowledge and understanding. I've not had chemistry as a background at all, actually, and I had to learn all these chemistry concepts, but it's just taught in such a great way, and it's not taught in a way such that you're disadvantaged before you take an exam or when you're learning it. Of course, yeah, maybe you may need to do the extra reading, but it will not hurt at all.
Thanks, Bishra. I think that's a good answer. I want to take a second to address some questions people have about online lectures and what that's like. So I just want to, does anybody else have any experience with online lectures? Has anybody on the panel sat at an online lecture?
I have had some from the business school. Yeah.
The business school ones. Okay, so that's separate because those are usually online anyways. So how the bioengineering department will kind of be running these things is you'll have a lecture, then you'll be given some kind of a problem sheet in your first year. You're expected to solve that in your own time. And then if you have trouble with that, you'll have a tutorial session, which is also online. And they'll have these online platforms where you can post questions, and your graduate teaching assistants and your professor will work to answer those. We've had some experience running that for modules like programming and some other maths-based modules as well. So far, they've gone pretty well. And an advantage of online is that if you answer a question once, you don't have to answer it again because, you know, it's there, so somebody can just find it. So that makes it easier for us as teaching assistants and the professor. It also means that we can answer a lot more questions because we're not answering duplicate questions over and over again. So I think it's pretty good. I don't think there'll be much missing out. The college and the department have not changed their learning outcomes or learning objectives, which means you will still be coming out with the exact same knowledge that you would if you had your term in person. The entire department is working very hard to ensure that that goal is met, and I'm quite confident that it will be met. Dimitra, you had something to add to this?
Yeah, so the last week of our last term was remote, so we did have some say online lectures. So lectures are recorded anyway through Panopto, even if they were in person, and sometimes people do just prefer to Panopto the lectures, either if they missed them for some reason or if they just want to watch them again, just to relearn some things and just catch one thing that they missed in the lectures. So it was quite good, you know, you were just listening to the lecture, and I found it quite nice in the sense that I could pause it and jot a few extra things down, and if I didn't understand what he was saying, I could quickly Google something and then resume, which is not something that you could do in person. And as Roy mentioned, we had a Piazza set up for us, which is a really great platform for just answering lots of questions, and it was really, really helpful to see all of the other students' questions, because it's some stuff that I wouldn't have thought myself to ask, but when I saw the answer, I was like, oh yeah, I'm actually really happy that someone did ask that, because I would have wondered that maybe in a week time or so. So I think that the aspect of having shared information is really, really good.
That's a great answer. Does anybody have anything else to add to that about online lectures, if they've had any experience with them? Okay, I think I have quite an interesting question here, which is about competition. So someone's asked, is competition tough when you get there? I guess I'd like to elaborate on that and ask the panel, you know, how have you felt about competition, say, amongst your peers? Is it healthy, unhealthy? What have you found about how does it feel when you're coming in? Of course, university is quite a new place for people to start. And when you're coming to a good university like Imperial, everybody's quite, you know, intelligent and hardworking. So how have you found that? If we could start with some of the first years who've just finished their introduction to Imperial. Yeah, Bishra?
Yeah. This I find quite an interesting question, because I feel like wherever you are, competition is quite subjective. But For me personally, I think it depends on your background. A lot of people and a lot of my friends actually are used to being in a background where everyone around you performs very well, is very intelligent, is very hardworking. I've not come from one of the best schools in the world. You know, I had a very large range of students in my class. So there is that bit of adaptation when you're one of the top students in your class and you're going to Imperial where everybody is nearly like you. But you know, maybe at first that might make you a bit anxious, but I'm telling you, it's actually a very beautiful thing. It's such a nice environment where you can just join forces, you know, solve questions together. Everyone's there to help you, and you know, everyone has that same work ethic. You know, if you feel like you're overstudying, you're never overstudying. You always have someone who wants to study with you. Like, it's really nice. Sometimes I go to the library with my friends when, you know, like at 8, 9 p.m. You know, when I just feel like I want to study something or go over something, and everyone's always down. So I never really felt like sort of a competition. It's just more everyone's on the same wavelength.
Ilyas?
But yeah,
sorry,
it's the best I can give.
Yeah. Can you see me? Oh, I'll just answer. So basically,
go ahead, Ilyas.
I just had something to add to what Bishop said. Basically, I think that especially in bioengineering, the department tries to optimize group work as much as possible, especially in first years. So basically, like, there are many modules where you have to like get in groups, just basically with people around you in lecture halls, for example, and just solve a quick problem, for example, in bioengineering in action, let's say. So you really like, and at the beginning you have like the head of department that comes and talk to you, and he clearly states that this department, especially in Imperial, will focus on teamwork. We want people to help each other, and you don't have this like, I don't know, maybe like toxic competition that you might be afraid of. You don't have anything of that in bioengineering at all.
It's a good answer, Ria.
Yes, I was just gonna say, in addition to what guys said previously, the bioengineering, like our cohort, is honestly one of the most supportive cohorts I've ever been part of. Like since the very first day until our last days where we had all these exams going on and with the whole situation, like everything happening in the world, there was not a single day where people weren't like, so everyone was sending their notes, like any kind of resources they were using, like people were not very, you know, oh, I'm going to use my resources and like I'm not sharing them with anyone. So they all wanted, of course, like you're going to have some of the smartest people in the world in your class, but everyone is going to be very supportive from my experience, at least.
Thanks, Rhea. I've got an interesting question here, which I think the master students would be quite good at answering. So somebody has asked, you know, bioengineering bachelor programs receive criticism about being too diverse. Some people say it's better to start with the traditional engineering field and then specialize in bioengineering. So can you tell us a bit about your backgrounds and how you guys got into bioengineering and what your thoughts are on whether starting with the general engineering and moving into bioengineering or starting, you know, as it is?
Okay, well, I think that depends on the specific biomedical engineering stream you'd like to go into. For master's students, biomedical engineering, there's 4 streams. There's biomechanics, there's neurotech, there's medical physics. So for me, I'm an electrical engineering student. Like that was my undergrad major, and currently I'm in the biomechanics stream. I would say that my previous engineering knowledge hasn't helped as much. I think I would have been better served in biomechanics if I had done mechanical engineering. So I think this course of action only works when from the onset you've already decided the part of biomedical engineering you're going to eventually specialize in. Then you can start off like picking a broad engineering scheme and then applying it to biomedical engineering. So I think that's the only scenario that works.
Thanks, Neddy.
Oh, sorry. So obviously I didn't study my biomedical engineering bachelor's at Imperial at King's, but so what it is the first year is very diverse. So I remember my modules were like, I think literally my first term modules were maths, physics, programming, and anatomy. So like, but that's what you need. You need a basis because, you know, one of the previous questions we had is, you know, you're worried about what maths level you need, what biology level you need. In the beginning, you know, uni is very I would say even school-like. You know, the only thing is you don't have to ask to go to the toilet anymore. You just go, right? You have a certain level of independence, but it's kind of, you know, you've got support. You're not spoon-fed, but you have support, and they're just guiding you into it. And then obviously second and third year, you get a bit more focused. So in my second and third year, I started to receive more bioengineering focus, and there was always a bioengineering focus, but you know, there's only so much you can do with maths making it bioengineering focused. So in second and third year, I had modules, you know, I had like bioelectricity and maybe like introduction to medical physics and clinical engineering, whatever. But you know, so I wouldn't say they do. If they receive criticism for being too diverse, they shouldn't, because that's the point. You know, it is biomedical engineering is a collaboration of different types of engineering. You've got electrical engineering involved. You're going to have mechanical engineering involved. There's so many, and then you've got the human body. So that's the point. That's the whole point of biomedical engineering. It's supposed to be diverse. And, you know, I would say go for a bachelor's, definitely, in biomedical engineering. It's specific enough to biomedical engineering, but then, you know, then you can get to something like what Neddy's doing. She's focused on biomechanics and doing her biomedical engineering master's, or you could go my route, which is robotics. So, you know, there's a lot of ways you can branch off, and there's a lot of ways you can stay focused. I would definitely go. I wouldn't worry about being too diverse in a bachelor's. I would just go for it.
Thanks, Ryan. I think that's a good answer. I'd like to take a second to kind of give my thoughts as well, if possible. So yeah, they're right that the bioengineering degree starts off quite general, the first 2 years, especially what you're learning is general engineering principles, mechanical, electrical, computational, and the context that those are applied to in bioengineering, which is really important. You're learning about the body, anatomy, and how those engineering principles kind of are used in medical applications. If you were to just study classical engineering, you wouldn't get that context, which is really important for us when we do our projects. We're understanding what the real world challenges are of engineering in healthcare and things like that. Secondly, as the degree progresses and you reach your final fourth year or your third year, actually, you do start specializing. You get a choice of modules that you can take. You have elective modules, and you can focus on electrical, you can focus on mechanical type of stuff, computational type of stuff, and even within them, you can focus on different things. So we have computational bioengineers who are focusing on embedded systems, things like, say, pacemakers. They're looking at smaller devices, implants, things like that. On the other hand, you have computational bioengineers who are working on image analysis and image processing. So if the students, you get this amazing choice and ability to specialize as you progress through the degree. But at the start, you get an understanding of what's out there, and you get to get a flavor of all of that, which I think is rare, and you don't get it in a lot of other engineering disciplines. Yeah. So taking on from that, we're going to see if there's an interesting question here. There was one about programming. Okay, I'll come to that one later. Someone's asking a pretty simple question about the master's courses, actually, is when exactly do they end? As in, when do your studies end? Is that in October or June?
I think for us, my master's is September. So our final project, we have to hand in before September 11th this year. And then, yeah, that's it. Then you receive results, or you graduate, I think, in May. You're supposed to graduate. So, yeah, I think it's start in October and in September.
Okay, thank you. So we have a fun question that's come in here, which is, what are the best kind of joints and places to go around, say, around campus? I'm guessing we'll stick to South Kensington campus for this, or maybe near Hammersmith as well. Does anybody have any restaurants, pubs, things that they found are interesting places to go nearby? Elias, yeah?
Well, I'm not going to give an exact place because I feel like every person will like its own spot, but I just wanted to say that Imperial has a lot of hidden cafes and bars, not bars, sorry, like cafes especially, that you don't probably know of in other buildings and stuff. So feel free, especially in first year, to like explore campus very well. Find maybe your best, like the coziest place or the nicest place for you. And yeah, and around there's like many restaurants. I will not recommend one because they're quite all nice. Ben's Cookies, for example. But yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
I'll add something then as well. Just obviously being from London, there is, if you walk to, I think, Gloucester Road, which is one of the stations, tube stations, underground stations near Imperial, there's Since you guys I'm assuming there's a lot of international students, you probably have not heard of Nandos. So Nandos is a English staple. It's a South African restaurant. I think they do South African food. No, started in South Africa, but it's Portuguese food. But it's very, very good. Staple of London. You have to try Nandos if you come to London. Also, there's a nice sub shop that's not Subway called More Than Just Subs by South Kensington Station. That is also very good. I like that very much. So I would recommend going there.
All right, those are some good suggestions. If I can add just a couple more. So what you'll find is Imperial is surprisingly located in quite a tourist hub. So you're surrounded by, I think, what is it? So you've got the Victoria and Albert Museum, you've got the Natural History Museum, and you've got the Science Museum right at your doorstep. Please tell me if I've forgotten something. I probably have. You have Hyde Park just north of you. There's lots of people walking.
Hall?
Huh? The Royal Albert Hall. Yeah, but it's expensive to get tickets to anything there. So that's a bit of a tough one. But yes, the Royal Albert Hall is also where you'll be graduating. And you've got Hyde Park right north of you, where there's lots of people who walk their dogs quite often. So if you ever need a stress relief, you can go pet some dogs. The campus itself offers quite a lot of subsidized food options for students. So you can find lots of things like there's kind of this Indo-Chinese fusion food, there's Italian food. I think there's a Starbucks now, I don't know. And you have these little cafes in each department where you can pick up things like sandwiches, subs, drinks, coffee, things like that. So food is definitely an easy thing around campus, and the subsidies make it quite nice.
I've got something to add for the arts venues that you mentioned, Abhishek.
Please.
So you mentioned that the Royal Albert Hall tickets are very expensive, and in general, I guess you can say that arts and theatre is a very big thing in London, and they're quite expensive and inaccessible. But what you've got to realize is that you're a student in London, and in London, we try and promote the arts quite a lot to students, and you get a lot of discounts, especially if you there are some apps where like Today Ticks or like Student Pals, and you get very discounted tickets. So like I'm pretty sure once or twice like a Royal Albert Hall ticket will come up, and it's very affordable for you guys. So you don't have to worry about, if you want to enjoy the arts and culture scene in London, it's definitely going to be there for you because you're a student and you have these perks.
Okay, thanks, Ming. I'm just going to run to a quick question here, which is about coding. I think I'll answer that. Somebody's asked, what kind of programming do you learn as part of the bioengineering degree? So in your first year, you'll be exposed to MATLAB and C, and you'll be learning the kind of principles of programming on those two platforms. In your second year, you'll be exposed to C++, which allows you to do quite a bit more than C, and C++ is, I think, the third or fourth most used programming language. After that, you're expected to kind of figure out new programming languages yourself, which is it's quite easy to do once you have that base of C and C++, because those are quite foundational languages. So then you can, in your projects, you'll be required to learn how to use Python, maybe JavaScript if you're doing any kind of web development, and MATLAB is a kind of a scientific standard for doing analysis kind of work on any kind of data. So that's what you'll be exposed to. Moving on, there's a question about accommodation advice. So the first years who've stayed in halls, can you tell us about what different people have said about different halls, and just do so a bit quickly because we're running out of time? Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, so I lived in Whitehall for the first year, which was extremely convenient because you're basically living 5 minutes away from campus, and you also have lots of, because like it's one of the closest halls to the university, and like there's a lot of activities going there all the time. So everyone had a great experience in Whitehall, and as I mentioned, I'm also going to be a hall senior there next year. So if you're in Whitehall, just come and say hi, whatever.
I mean, I stayed in Eastside, and I was also a part of the hall committee, and it was just a lot of fun, to be honest. I think no matter what hall you stay in, I guess it all depends on you. Of course, the ones on campus are more expensive than the ones that are not on campus, but it's just really good fun. I wouldn't say there's one that's specifically better than the others. It all comes down to you will meet your people there, guaranteed. I visited all my friends in Woodward, in Pembridge, Wilson House, Whitehall, or Southside, whatever it is, and they just have great batches on their floor, and I just have a good time whenever I go and visit them. So I think you'll be okay wherever you go. Don't be too discouraged if it's not your first option.
I was just gonna add, like, as soon as you start living there, you're just gonna notice that every student is gonna, like, almost every student is gonna argue that their hall is the best one, because like most of them tend to have a very good time there. So.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Jane, I just want to ask how many questions we have time for.
How many more questions have we got fielding?
Maybe 2 or 3, that's all.
If people, I think we could stay on for another 3 or 4 minutes, and then we would need to. I'll allow you to wrap up, and just to let attendees know that we'll send a feedback form at a later date, because you can't link into it on the chat. Thanks.
Thanks, Jen. So one of the common questions that we get, how do you balance studies and extracurricular activities? How many societies should you join? As in, 2, 3, 4? So anybody who's had experience joining lots of societies, doing kind of a variety of work? We'll start with Alvaro.
Yeah, I think in general, it really depends on what you want or what experience you kind of want to have. I'd say, or kind of like my tip for first year, one of the things I wanted was from the beginning, I wanted to try and meet as many people as I could. So I just joined a lot of societies that I thought I would find interesting. And they have a lot of taster sessions or trials that you can just go to. And even if you don't end up being part of a certain society, it's a great way to meet people. But then overall, you can also do things outside of Imperial if you want. There's a lot of clubs and other societies in London as well. But Imperial has so many societies. I think, as Ria said, over like 300 societies. So I think there's something for everyone. And balancing extracurriculars and academics, I guess, obviously you learn by doing. So at the beginning, if you think you're spending too much time on academics, then maybe you should try do something outside of it, and the other way around. But I think it just depends on you, but there's always something for everyone. So I wouldn't worry about not finding something you'd like.
Thanks. Elias?
Well, I just wanted to add something quickly to what Alvaro said. Like, it's especially in first year, it will be easier for you, I think, in my opinion, to organize your time. You'll have somehow a bit more time. And so that's why I recommend definitely to try and find the people you're most anxious to say the societies. Basically, we'll be organizing events, but we try also to like in the way or anything that could push you not really.
Okay, thank you, Elias. Can we take a second? Actually, Dimitra, can you tell us specifically about what kind of extracurricular activities and kind of events the Bioengineering Society runs, and what those are? So what's specific to bioengineering, what the social life is like?
Yeah, of course. So we have a lot of events in terms of social events. We have well-being events, academic and technical events. We have events regarding like industrial stuff. So for example, we have a really big Christmas dinner every year. That's quite a big hit. Obviously, with the whole coronavirus situation, it will have to be like reevaluated for next year and how we're going to run it. But we're still hoping on having like some sort of dinner because it is quite a highlight. In terms of the industrial events, as many people are really worried about like internships and stuff like that. So we hold talk about internships, like just sharing previous students' experiences, like year in industries. And then we have well-being events, which are basically, we had some dogs brought in, which were great stuff. We have arts and crafts, movie nights. It's a great way to actually connect with the students on your course and meet other students in the other years as well. And at the end of each term, we have a big bash for all the students, which is probably what most people look forward to. It's quite a fun party. There's karaoke, and during the summer bash, which is the final one, which we collaborate with the department. The departmental band plays, which is always great to see your lectures in a different setting. But yeah, there's tons of events, and we always accept new ideas. So if there's an event that you want to see, you can just feel free to email the Bioengineering Society. You can find our page on Facebook, and I believe our email should be on there as well. Otherwise, it should be on the directory or the union website. So feel free to ask any other questions. And if you do have some events that you want to see run that we haven't had already, do email. Oh, and we also host a hackathon with some of the other societies at Imperial, with the Computing Society and the Medic Coding Society. So that's another thing that you can get involved in if you're interested.
Okay, thanks so much, Dimitra. And I just wanted to point out while we're here that Elias, who's on the call, is actually the president of the Bioengineering Society for next year. So he'll be organizing a lot of these events, which are specific to bioengineers and are made to kind of foster a sense of community and well-being within among our students. So I don't see any new questions that I don't think we've addressed that are particularly pressing. Do any of the other panelists see any question they want to kind of answer right before we wrap this up?
I think there was a question about the molecular stream and the biomedical in terms of shared modules, labs, and lectures.
Mm-hmm. So Ming, would you be able to clarify about how separate the two degrees are?
Yes, definitely, I can. So molecular bioengineering is quite interesting. So we share a lot of courses with the biomedical students in our first 2 years, and the course is structured in such a way that we gradually diverge from the biomedical stream as we progress through the years. So in the first year, the purpose of the first year is to get everybody the foundational knowledge in engineering and bioengineering. So really, the fact that it is shared comes at no surprise, because these are foundational skills that actually any engineer should know anyway. So that's why a lot of the courses are shared. And then when you get into your second year, you get more specialized courses. And then in your third year, even more. And in your fourth year, almost all of your modules are created specially for your course. And in terms of laboratory, we do get more wet lab kind of modules. So we do get a lot more wet lab experience compared to the biomedical engineers. And that's where one of the key differences between the courses. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much, Ming. Any other questions the panelists think, or any information they want to give out to the students?
There was just another last question about the costs for international students, which I can voice in because I am also an international student. So I'm originally from Greece, which I don't think I mentioned, and I grew up in America. So even though I did come to London from, I guess, quite a similar background to, like, because it's obviously an English-speaking country, I would say that London is quite an expensive city overall, but you can definitely find some really good deals. So accommodation is not going to be the cheapest thing, but you can like live with more people, and that does make it more affordable. I know some people that have found really, really cheap accommodation, even cheaper than some of the hall options, which is really great because living with more people obviously makes it a bit cheaper. And in terms of general costs, there are lots of like food deals. Uni Days has some really good discounts for university students, and there are also great deals just for being a student. By showing your you get like your student card, you get lots of discounts around places. In terms of like getting money and stuff for international students, like I would say that I don't notice the cost difference in my day-to-day life as much as, or like any different than any other student. The main difference is obviously like the fee cost, which I'm assuming that if you do come, they do have an option of paying it in like doses if you're worried about that. But yeah, I'm not too sure about like scholarships. I think there are external ones. There are some scholarships. Maybe Jane can talk about any scholarships available for the international students, because I'm not too positive about that.
So the scholarships would all have been awarded by now for the offer holders, so they would have applied by now.
Okay.
Thanks, Jane.
Yeah, I did think that, but I think there are some like external grants and stuff that you can apply for.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, that was for master's students. I was talking about undergraduate students. I have to confess, I am new, as I've been the admissions and outreach manager for 6 weeks in the middle of this. If you've got any specific questions related to that, then please email the admissions and we'll be able to answer it, but I don't know the answer straight away.
Yeah, I don't think you should ever be worried too much about money. A lot of students make some good money with tutoring on the side. It's only a few hours and very good rates. So if you are worried about that, I wouldn't let it be your number one like setback to you coming to Imperial. So I hope that answers your question. Now back to Roy. I think this is probably the final question that we were answering.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't see any new ones on the app. Yeah, just to add to what Dimitra said on the finances thing, she's absolutely right. Tutoring is quite a lucrative part-time kind of job students can take up. You work a few hours in the week and you can make up quite a bit of money. Apart from that, students who want to save money, they'll do things like they will, they'll, instead of commuting using public transport, they'll buy a really cheap secondhand cycle around. They'll cook for themselves. Cooking for yourselves is a really good option because eating out can get expensive. And yeah, there's lots of jobs around campus as well. We have the Imperial College Union. They have they have jobs that they can assign you to. In your senior years, as in your third year and fourth year, you can work as an undergraduate teaching assistant, and that pays quite well as well. So there's definitely options that, and we as students can cut back on the financial burden of coming to London to study. You just need to be aware of the costs and kind of aware of what it'll take for you to overcome those. Does anybody else on the panel have any other information they want to give out to the students before we wrap this up?
I think we're good.
Okay, thank you so much for all the panelists for joining us. I think everyone's been so helpful to the incoming batch of students, and thanks so much to Jane, who has painstakingly organized this event, and hopefully we've given out some good information to offer holders, which can help them make their decision. And we're looking forward to see you next year at Imperial.
So, and I just wanted to add to Abhishek's thanks and say thank you very much to our current student panel. We will be holding another Q&A session on Saturday, and we will probably be slightly more au fait with this, and we might see some of you again then. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to email us. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.